Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our today's session on Mahabharata character series. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshutarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome everyone. So today we'll be discussing a very important and prominent character from Mahabharata, and that is Draupadi. So Draupadi, she is a prominent female character in Mahabharata, and actually in her generation, the wives of Kauravas and the various other wives of the Pandavas, she is the most prominent character. So the previous generation ladies, Kunti and Gandhari, they have some role in Mahabharata, but none of them can come close to the role which Draupadi plays in Mahabharata. So basically, Draupadi, she is a extremely devoted, determined, chaste, and a very exalted lady. So as will be discussing the various events which happened in the life of Draupadi, we'll see how these character, these qualities, they come up very nicely in her behavior. Actually, right from her birth, she was an extraordinary lady. Her story is very extraordinary. She didn't take birth like an ordinary child in this world. So her father, Drupada, so he was actually very mortified when he was defeated and arrested by Drona. Because Drona, once he went to Drupada to ask for some charity, because they both were staying in Gurukul and they were good friends, children at that time, they were children. Then Drupada, he went on to become a great king. And Dronacharya, he was a simple Brahmana, very poor personality. So one day, on being told by his wife Drona, he went to Drupada to ask for something, and he said, "Oh Drupada, I am your friend, so please can you help me?" Drupada, he said, "I can help you, but don't call me your friend. Friendship can happen only between equals." And Drona, he felt so very offended, so very insulted. He came back with a vow to take revenge from Drupada, because he was thinking himself to be a friend of Drupada. That's what happens many times in this world. People, when they become big, when they reach a certain position, then many times they, you know, don't take care of the relationships which they had previously because of the pride of wealth, position, prestige. All these things go in the mind, and many times people, they don't want to have any friendship or relationship with their friends whom they were moving around earlier with. And that's what happened with Drupada. He was so very proud of his wealth, of his kingdom, that he did not even like calling himself as a friend of a poor Brahmana. Supreme Lord does not like this type of proud, arrogant behavior. We see the complete contrast. When Sudama, he came to Krishna, Lord Krishna made him sit on his own throne. So Drupada, when he insulted Drona came back, and ultimately he made Pandavas and Kauravas to go and arrest Drupada. Ultimately Drupada was arrested. He felt so bad, so insulted and mortified. he wanted to take revenge. He called Brahmanas, their name was Yaja and Upyaja, and he made them do a sacrifice because he wanted a son who could kill Dronacharya. And also, when Arjuna, so it so happened that when Drona told Kauravas and the Pandavas, now you go and arrest Drupada. Kauravas, out of their arrogance, they said, we will go alone and we will capture Drupada. And then all the Kauravas, they went along with Karna, but they were defeated by Drupada. And then Pandavas, they went headed by Arjuna. And Arjuna, he was so very powerful, skilled, expert. He very easily defeated Drupada. So Drupada, he had two desires. He wanted to take revenge from Dronacharya and he wanted to have a daughter also, because just by seeing the power of Arjuna, he was thinking, I wish I could have Arjuna as my son. I want a son like this. But anyways, I can't have him as my son. At least I can have him as my son-in-law. So he wanted a son who could kill Dronacharya, and he wanted a daughter who could marry Arjuna. So with this in mind, he performed a huge sacrifice with the help of Brahmanas. And from that sacrifice, Drishtadyumna appeared and Draupadi appeared. Draupadi, when she appeared, she was effulgent. She was a dark complexioned lady when she took birth. She didn't come as a small child, she was a grown up lady coming directly from the yajna. And she was extremely beautiful, extraordinarily beautiful. And therefore, she is also called as Yajna Seni. Yajna Seni means one who is born from yajna or sacrifice. So, Draupadi, she is known by many names. She is known as Krishna. Krishna means black complexioned or dark complexioned. Although she was dark, just like Krishna, Supreme Lord Krishna, he is also Shama Sundar, but he is supremely beautiful. Similarly, Draupadi, she is also called by the name Krishna. So Krishna and Krishna, because she is also dark complexion. She is also called by the name Panchali, because Drupada, he was the king of Panchal, and his daughter is Panchali. So Draupadi, when she took birth from this yajna, she was very effulgent, very beautiful, and when she appeared, there was a there was a sound, and there was a voice which spoke from the sky. The voice spoke, "This lady will be the cause of the destruction of the world Kshatriyas." So we have to understand this type of predictions very carefully. So somebody may say, "Oh, that means she is inauspicious. She'll be the cause of destruction." The cause does not mean that she'll be the cause of destruction. She'll be the cause of provocation. She was not the one who was responsible for creating the war, but she was the center, because Kauravas, first of all, they wanted to marry Draupadi, but they could not get her. And from that day on, Draupadi, she was the fulcrum of the envy between Kauravas and the Pandavas, because Draupadi was very, very beautiful. She was the reservoir of all the wonderful qualities, very devoted lady. And if she would be inauspicious, then why other kings they would like to have him? Because when Draupadi's Swayamvar was taking place, the kings from all over the world they came to take part, because everybody wanted Draupadi's hand. So therefore we have to understand the words very carefully. Many times we misunderstand others in this world based on the words which they spoke. Although the person who is speaking, he may not be having bad intentions, but many times we judge people based on the words which they have spoken. So we have to understand that judgmental mentality. So to judge is a natural instinct. We naturally judge others, but we have to understand when to judge and when not to judge. First of all, before judging others, we have to start, judging ourselves. Our small things, just like when we speak something, we have to judge ourselves. Am I speaking right words? What is my intention in speaking this? Before sending a mail, just like when we are in a fit of anger, or we are, having some grudges, we write angry mails. Somebody said, write those mails, but don't send it. Don't send the mail, just keep it for a few hours. Then after few hours again you look at that mail, then you will realize, oh, I think this is too much, I should not send this mail. And similarly, when you are speaking, we cannot get our words back. So we have to first pause, introspect, contemplate, and then speak. Rather than speaking some critical comments, we should try to learn to give positive comments, or if not possible positive, then at least neutral comments. That's how we'll understand, will not develop ill relationships with others. So when Draupadi, she appeared, she was very much adored by everybody, and she was like a grown up lady. And then Drupada, he arranged for the swayamvar, because Drupada wanted to marry Draupadi with Arjuna, and he arranged such difficult test, because Drupada, he had heard that in the Varnavarta Lakshagraha, all the Pandavas, they died along with their mother. So Drupada, he was thinking, I don't think this is possible that Pandavas can die in such an insignificant way. So he was expecting that maybe Arjuna and all the Pandavas, they are still alive. So he thought, I should devise such a difficult test which can be passed only by Arjuna. And that's how he devised such a difficult thing. You have to shoot the eye of a fish which is there on the top, and it was rotating. It was on the wheel which was rotating. And the person has to look down in a reflection in water and shoot at that fish, the eye of the fish. It was so very difficult. But Drupada, he knew that Arjuna can do this very nicely. Very easily he can do it. And we have heard in Kunti Maharani's life description that when Pandavas, they came to uh, Panchal, so Arjuna, when he was told that you please go and try, because none of the kings, they could do it. Even Karna, he tried. Actually, some people say Karna, when he came Draupadi, she said, I will not marry a Suta. But we have heard in our description of Karna that Madhvacharya, there is a great saint Acharya, he writes in his book Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay. In that he writes, actually Draupadi didn't say anything. Karna tried and he lost by a hair's breadth. So when none of the kings could do it, then Arjuna, he came forward and he requested Drishtadyumna. He said, now I can see that none of the Kshatriyas, they are able to fulfill this. And because Arjuna and all the Pandavas, they were in the garb of Brahmanas. So Arjuna asked, if you if you agree, if you give your permission, then I would like to try. So then Drishtadyumna, he consulted with Drupada, and they came up to the conclusion that actually Brahmanas, they are higher, so there is no problem. They are higher than Kshatriyas. So there is no problem if Arjuna he tries, and if he succeeds, then it is wonderful. So we can see the Arjuna, he is also very sensitive, not like Karna, who came and boasted about himself. And ultimately, Arjuna he won the hand of Draupadi. And then we have heard in the story of Kunti that how, because of the words of Kunti, she was ultimately married to all the five Pandavas. Actually, Draupadi, she was so very beautiful that all the five Pandavas, when they saw Draupadi first, they were attracted to her. And when Arjuna, he won her, so he thought actually Yudhishthir should marry her because he is the eldest. And the other Pandavas, they were thinking, no, because Arjuna has won her, so he should get married. But eventually she got married to all the five. And Draupadi, she was so very expert, so very chaste, so very expert in serving, and at the same time very beautiful. So by her nature, she won the hearts of all the Pandavas. Vidura, Vyasdev, he comes, you know, at this time when this discussion was happening. How can Draupadi be married to five Pandavas? Vyasdev, he came and he told about the secret behind this. He said, he revealed the history of Draupadi. He said, in the past life, she was the daughter of Nal and Damayanti, the famous couple. The famous story which we have heard many times, the Nal Damayanti story. So they had a daughter called Nalayini, and this Nalayini, she wanted to marry a husband who should have all the 14 primary qualities, and five qualities she wanted, you know to have very prominently. The husband, she was thinking, my husband should be very virtuous, powerful, expert, very beautiful, handsome, and skilled. And with this in mind, she was doing tapasya to please Lord Shiva. She was so very obsessed with the desire to have a very nice husband that when Lord Shiva appeared in front of her, she said, I want husband. Five times she said, in her desperation, she said, I want a husband. And Lord Shiva, when he heard this, he said, okay, so be it, you'll have five husbands. So when Draupadi, she heard this, she was shocked. She said, how is this possible? Because in earlier days, polygamy was common. One husband may have many wives, because many times the number of women were more, and some men would go and take part in the war. They would die. Some people, some males would become renunciants. So naturally, if all the women have to be married and be under protection, so then one person is allowed to accept many wives. In earlier days it was like that. But polyandry was not known, it was not common. Polyandry means one women having many husbands. So she was shocked. She said, how is this possible? How will I accept this? How will people take this? So Lord Shiva said, don't worry, this is not adharmic. you know and your desires, this is how your desires will be fulfilled. And Lord Shiva said, actually, you will get five husbands in the next life, and that's how nobody will blame you. So Draupadi, she accepted, and now when she was this Nalaini, she was born as Draupadi, and ultimately she got married to five husbands. She accepted all of them. She served them very nicely, very chaste lady. Drupada, when he came to know, that oh, she is married to five husbands, he was shocked first, but then he accepted it as the will of Providence because it was endorsed by Vyasdev. Because Vyasdev is such a powerful personality. If he is endorsing something, that means it has to be right. And on top of that, Yudhishthir Maharaj, he was also the son of Dharma. And he said, if this is coming, because I think this is right, because this thought is coming in my mind. So anything which comes in my mind has to be dharmic. So that was the conviction of Yudhishthir. So Draupadi, she took up the service very diligently, very wonderfully. She was serving all the five Pandavas. To serve five husbands, it was not easy. But this shows the expertise of Draupadi. She served them so very nicely and pleased all of them. But because Arjuna was the one who won her in Swayamvar, so she had some special place for Arjuna in her heart, and this is natural because you know every lady, she wants to marry a person whom she adores. And Arjuna, he was such a powerful warrior. He was the one who was like the dream man for Draupadi, and that's why she had a very special place for Arjuna. And when after the whole this event happened, and then she came back to Hastinapur with the Pandavas, and then Pandavas, they made a entire city of Indraprastha. We've heard about this also, that actually Dhritarashtra gave Pandavas a barren land. Although he gave half of the kingdom, but that half was just a barren land. It was called as Khandava Prastha. But Pandavas, by their power, they transformed that land into Indraprastha, a very opulent, a very flourishing kingdom. And then they performed Rajasuya Yagya. Rajasuya Yagya was the crowning glory for all the Pandavas, and it was crowning glory for Draupadi also, for various reasons. Pandavas, because they were now known as the most powerful kings in the whole world. And secondly, in Rajasuya Yagya, they established the position of Krishna as a supreme person. Because for Pandavas, Krishna was their everything. And that was the same for Draupadi. Draupadi, as we'll discuss, she was an extremely devoted lady. For her, Krishna was her Lord. And of course, for Draupadi, it was a crowning glory because she became the queen. She became the prime queen of the kings of the whole world. But there was one person who was at his pinnacle of jealousy. That was Duryodhan. Some people say that Draupadi, she was the one who laughed when Duryodhan he fell down in the water, because this palace, which was created by Maya Danav, there was a demon Maya, and he was a very expert architect. He had made this wonderful palace and assembly hall for the Pandavas. And because he was very mystical personality, he had made such illusions in many places that people, they would get bewildered many times. So Duryodhan, when he was roaming around in this palace, just by looking at the opulence of this palace, he was getting so very angry and envious. One place he saw there is a wall, so he thought that there is a wall, but there was nothing. It, it was like a mirror. Other place, He thought, okay, okay, there is nothing, so he walked and then he fell in the water. There was the water there. So people, some people they say, oh, Draupadi, she laughed. Some people they spice it up. So they say, Draupadi, she said, oh, andhe ka beta andha, a blind father has a blind son. But actually, Vyasdev does not mention anything in Mahabharata like this. Because Draupadi, she, of course, when somebody slips in an awkward way, we naturally smile. So Draupadi, she smiled, but it was just in a light mood. And Draupadi, she was so very cultured, gentle, sensitive lady, so she could not have spoken those insensitive, harsh words. And of course, Vyasdev does not mention this in Mahabharata. But Duryodhan took it as an insult. When we are jealous of what others have, and when we can't be in the right mindset, then we take even, when we are not in the right mindset, then we take even this little casual words as offensive. So this is very important. As it is said many times, I don't give any reason to anyone to hate me, but they create their own drama out of jealousy. So because people they have envious mentality, they have envious mindset. So therefore they take even casual words very seriously and offensively. And that's what happened with Duryodhan. And he remembered this throughout his life. For him, because Duryodhan was also the one who had went to the Swayamvar of Draupadi, and he also wanted to marry Draupadi. But she, because Arjuna, he won Draupadi. Duryodhan was always angry, always jealous, envious of Arjuna. And when this incident happened, he became so very disturbed. He could not maintain his composure. Immediately he left that place. And then, after this, he went and told Dhritarashtra. He was burning with anger, so envious. He was he wanted to just destroy Pandavas. He went to Dhritarashtra and he said, Father, I cannot take it anymore. We have to find some ways by which we can defeat and destroy these Pandavas. Dhritarashtra, although he was externally he would behave as a well-wisher of Pandavas also, but internally in his heart of hearts, he wanted his sons to become king and he wanted them to become victorious. And that for this he was many times acting in a very wrong way, irreligious way. So Duryodhan he told plan to Dhritarashtra. He said, we will call Pandavas for a gambling match. And because Yudhishthir, he is such devoted to the elders, if you send an invitation, he will not be able to refuse it. And we have Shakuni, and Shakuni was very expert in gambling, at the same time very deceitful, shrewd, cunning, and his whole motive was he wanted kingdom for Duryodhan. Because we have discussed earlier also, when Gandhari she was married, Shakuni thought she'll be the queen, but ultimately she was married to Dhritarashtra. He thought she'll be married to Pandu, and from then on he thought, if my sister cannot become the queen, at least her sons should become the king. Because in that he also wanted some prestige, some profit. So Duryodhan he said that we will Tell Shakuni he will play on our behalf, and for sure he will very easily defeat Yudhishthir in gambling. And in this way will usurp the entire kingdom of Pandavas. So the message was sent, and Yudhishthir, as loyal and surrendered he was, because he always thought that if I submit to the will of my elders, then we can live peacefully. Because elders, they are always right, they make right decisions, and therefore we should stick to the words of the elders. So ultimately, Yudhishthir came and he gambled everything. Slowly, slowly, gradually, he lost everything. All his wealth, chariots, kingdom, nothing was remaining. Shakuni, he told, and the Kauravas, they provoked. So Yudhishthira said, "Now don't have anything." So they said, Kauravas, they said, "No, still you have your five brothers." And then Yudhishthira, he staked them also, lost. And then said, "Oh, you have Draupadi, she is most beautiful." And Yudhishthir, he actually said, "Yes, Draupadi, she is a jewel. She has such wonderful character." And he started describing the beauty of Draupadi. This whole incident shows how gambling can, you know, bewilder the mind of even such a great saintly personality like Yudhishthir. And ultimately, he lost Panchali also. And when Duryodhan, he came to know, he understood now Draupadi is won. He told one of the soldiers called Pratikamin. His name was Pratikamin. So when this gambling match was happening, Draupadi, she was in seclusion in one cloth, single cloth, because of the some bodily circumstances, and she was there in the inner chambers. Duryodhan, he told this Pratikamin, "You go and get Draupadi, bring her in this assembly, and tell her that now she has new husbands and she should serve them." So Pratikamin, he was already apprehensive because for a lady to come in the assembly in that situation, it is not proper. And before that, betting a woman in gambling, that is also improper. Anyways, because he was ordered by Duryodhan, he went to her chambers and he told what all has happened. And Draupadi, when she heard this, she was completely shocked. For a woman, chastity is as valuable as her life. So therefore, to go in the assembly in such situation, it would be disgrace for her, and it would be a disgrace for entire family. So she started thinking. She thought fast and told Pratikamin that just go and ask the assembly. If Yudhishthir had already gambled himself first, then what right he had to gamble me? So Pratikamin, he went and repeated the same question. Everyone was silent. Nobody spoke. Duryodhan got up. He said, "Just go and tell her that you come and ask personally this question to the entire assembly." Pratikamin, he was very fearful. He went back, completely bewildered. He did not know what to speak. Just see now the reaction of Draupadi. Draupadi, she was also in complete anxiety. But when she saw this person in anxiety, she could see the fear on his face. She consoled him and she said, "Don't worry, don't be fearful. Just tell me what happened. What did the assembly say?" So, this is how the wonderful nature of Draupadi comes out in this incident such prominently. A person who is deeply rooted in spiritual values, you know, he or she never leaves his or her good nature, even if people deal with them wrongly. As His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he says that people, when they behave with us in a wrong way, we should not repay them in the same currency. We should not speak in the same harsh way. If somebody misbehaves with us, it is so easy to repay back in the same way. That is what is called tit for tat in the world. But a person who is spiritually deeply rooted, he does not repay back, and he neither keeps the currency with him to use it in future. In future, I will repay this. I will, do the needful in future. No. The spiritualist, he is so full of gratitude towards God. He is like an ocean. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yatvat tadvad kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakama kami. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, a spiritualist whose heart is full of gratitude, full of devotion, he is like an ocean. His heart is like an ocean. In the ocean, hundreds of rivers may enter, but the ocean remains calm, silent. Similarly, in this world, because we are staying with people who may have some, bad qualities, they may speak harsh words, they may mistreat, insult us, but of course, we have to do the needful, but we should try as much as possible not to repay in the same currency, because it is so very easy to lose, to give up our virtue and react in the same way. But Draupadi, by her wonderful example, she's showing how to repay, how to respond to vice with virtue. And that's how Draupadi, she first of all consoled this person. She said, don't worry, please tell me. There is a story about a sage and a scorpion. One time a sage was taking bath in the river and he saw a scorpion drowning. Out of genuine compassion, he just took the scorpion in his hands because he wanted to save that scorpion. But scorpion, he bit that sage, and because of the intense pain, the sage just put that scorpion again in water. But again he was drowning, so scorpion was drowning. Again he tried to help him. It happened 2 3 times. The scorpion bit that person. Again, then he left. One person he was watching, he said, why are you doing this, oh great sage? Can't you see that this scorpion is biting you again and again? That great sage said, his nature is to bite, my nature is to help. If he is not living his nature, how can I leave my nature? You know. So therefore, a person, this is of course a very tall order, but that is what is natural for people who are having strong spiritual values. Not superficial morality. Superficial morality may not help many times. But if we have our morality, which is based on deep spiritual foundation, then we will not get disturbed even in the midst of greatest of the provocations. As it is said, the greatness of a person is judged by how he responds in provoking situations. So Pratikamin, when he was consoled by Draupadi, he said, "O chaste lady, it seems that the Kuru family is on the verge of disaster." And he related whatever the assembly said, whatever Duryodhan said. Draupadi, She gave a wonderful reply. Actually, her reply here is the essence of all dharmic living. She said four things. She said, first, she said, certainly the Lord, who is the controller of everything, he has ordained this. Because in this world, nothing happens without the will of the Lord. Lord must have some plan for me. When things do not go according to the way we want, we should know that definitely if we are on the path of virtue, if we are on the path of dharma, definitely Lord is taking care of my life. Immediately we may see some wrong happening, but we may not be able to see the long term picture, a whole broad picture. That's why we sometimes get bewildered. But Draupadi, she was not bewildered. She was in anxiety, she was in tension, but she reconciled. She said, certainly the Lord, who is the controller of everything, he's in control. He has ordained this. Secondly, she said, in this world, when good and bad comes, it has to come to everybody, irrespective of whether we are living righteously or unrighteously. Even if somebody, because it happens in many lives, many people's lives, they may feel I have not done anything wrong, but still bad is happening to me. Just like we don't endeavor for happiness, but still we get happiness in many ways. Similarly, because happiness is ordained, whatever we have done, we get the result according to that. And similarly, the distress will come even if we don't want it, because it is ordained by our previous activities. So Draupadi, she said, good and bad comes to every living being, irrespective of how they live. Thirdly, she said, in this world, virtue is the greatest treasure. She said, we should not worry whether good is happening or bad is happening. We should worry about whether we are following virtue or not. Very, very profound conviction Draupadi is showing here. And then she said, the last thing she said, if we live our life virtuously, for sure virtue will bless us profusely. That is called dharmo rakshati dharmaha. If we live our life based on the religious principles, based on the laws which are laid down by Krishna, definitely we will get rewarded. So Draupadi told Pratikamin, said, you go and tell this to assembly, and then whatever they decide, I am ready to follow. I will act according to their will. So when in this terrible situation, Draupadi, who is just about to be disrobed, the greatest calamity which can happen to any woman, she didn't forget dharma. She remained, and actually, when later she reminded dharma to the assembly. So the whole life of Draupadi is an example of how one should stick to the principles of dharma even in the midst of all testing situations. So Pratikamin, he went and spoke. He told to the assembly whatever Draupadi spoke. Yudhishthir, he was completely confused. He was shocked. He could not say anything. Pratikamin was also confused. Duryodhan got up. He shouted at Pratikamin. And he told Dushashan, oh Dushashan, this fool is afraid of Bhima. You go and get Draupadi. For Duryodhan, his whole life was centered around Bhima only. He was so very envious of Bhima that he would compare every time with Bhima. Dushashan, as shameless he was, as soon as he got this order, he charged towards the chamber of Draupadi. And Draupadi, when she saw this wretched person Dushashan coming with complete lust in his eyes. She was shocked. She started running towards the chambers of Gandhari. She thought now only Gandhari can help. But Dushashan, he was very powerful, very, uh, very powerful Kshatriya. He charged towards Draupadi, grabbed her with her hair, started dragging her. You know, Draupadi, she said, "Oh wretch, I am in one cloth. I cannot come in the front of assembly in this situation. Please leave me." Dushashan didn't hear. He said, shamelessly, he said, "Now you are our maid servant. Whether you come, it does not matter. Whether you come with cloth or without cloth, doesn't matter." And he started dragging Draupadi. She was mortified. She begged, "Please don't do this." But there was no use for this. Dushashan dragged her throughout the courtyard and then ultimately brought her in front of assembly. Entire assembly was just silently waiting. Everybody was confused. Apart from the Kauravas, who were very vicious, there were many saintly, many righteous kings. They were completely confused what to do, how to react. Draupadi, she entered the assembly. She was dragged. She saw her five husbands. They had put their head down. They could not look at Draupadi. Dushashan hurled Draupadi towards Duryodhan and she fell on the ground. She got up and then looked at her husbands, beseeching, "Please help." But they could not say even a single word. Pandavas, they had not felt such anger for, Kauravas. Even after they lost everything, they were not so angry. But now, seeing Draupadi in such situation, they were completely, outraged. They were completely angry. Draupadi, she got up. She was looking at her husbands, but her eyes were not full of anger towards when she saw Pandavas. It was full of modesty. That shows how Draupadi, and we'll see how Draupadi, she didn't even blame Yudhishthir and any of the Pandavas. She just looked at them and she understood that they are helpless. So she composed herself and she spoke. She spoke to the entire assembly. She said, "Please forgive me for coming in this situation, but I was forced to come here." Even in this situation, she is first of all asking for forgiveness, where everybody knew that Draupadi was forced to be here, but she's asking forgiveness. She said, I was forced to come here." And she said, "Many of you here, you are devoted to virtue. Many of you are my seniors, my teachers. I ask you, how can Yudhishthir gamble me when he had already gambled himself?" Entire assembly was silent. Nobody could speak anything. Even Dhritarashtra didn't say anything. He was just externally he was behaving as if he is confused, but internally he was thinking, "Yes, that's how my sons will get the kingdom." He was still hopeful. Bhishma got up and he spoke. He said, "Rules of dharma are very subtle, and it is very difficult to decide what is right in this situation. So therefore, O Draupadi, I cannot give any answers." He sat down. Duryodhan, when he heard this neutral comment, and actually it was in favor of Duryodhan, he became very happy. And Draupadi, she protested. She said, "Yudhishthir has no fault. He was bound by the words of his elders. Because elders, they called Yudhishthir for gambling. He came. What was his fault? He is completely devoted to virtue. And he knew that he is not expert in gambling. But still, He came. He knew that he would have to play against a gambler who is very expert, shrewd, cruel, deceitful, but still he came. Why, Because he has very high regards for elders. So she is completely, speaking in favor of Yudhishthir. This is the extraordinary quality of Draupadi. This is unimaginable, unthinkable. How can somebody behave in such a way even after being chastised, even after being, insulted? It was obvious. Draupadi could have spoken harsh words to Yudhishthir. She could have blamed them for taking her. But in this situation, she stands by her husband's side. She said, King acts only according to virtue, and I know my husbands, they have no fault. I cannot find even an iota of fault in my husbands. And that's how she glorified her husbands. So therefore, it is very important that, in our day-to-day life, we may have conflicts with our loved ones, and we cannot wash away those conflicts. Of course, we have to take care of the conflicts, we have to deal with them. But when we are in the public forum, we have to be united. The conflict which we have with our relatives, our near and dear ones, they should not become so overwhelming that we start blaming them even in public. Therefore, it is very important to have trust. When it comes to developing a strong relationship, trust is very, very important. And Draupadi had full trust. She had full faith that Pandavas, they can never do anything irreligious, anything sinful. So we may have some disagreements, but that should be superficial. That should not affect our trust for our near ones. We have to be really careful, and sparks will be there when we come together. When any two people they come together, definitely for sure there will be disagreements. Sparks will come out, but we have to take care of those sparks very nicely and in the early stage. Otherwise, it is said, a spark neglected burns the house many times. And that's what happens in relationships. When we don't take care of the misunderstandings, we don't resolve them, then definitely the relationships break. So Draupadi, she had full faith in Yudhishthir. One may say, oh, it was completely the fault of Yudhishthir. He was the one who put Draupadi at stake. So he is to be blamed. But Draupadi, she refuses to find fault with Yudhishthir. She begs to the assembly. She says, please tell, was I lost? Nobody spoke. When nobody spoke, Vikarna, he got up. Vikarna was the one of the 100 Kauravas. He was the least vicious one. You know, all the Kauravas, they were vicious, very crooked, cruel. He was the most least vicious. He got up and he said, "Oh assembly, this chaste lady has asked a question. She has put a question in front of all of us. We have to answer. If we don't answer, we will become implicated. If an innocent person comes for justice and we are not giving justice to them, we also become sinful. So please answer her question." Nobody spoke still. Few minutes passed by. Dead silence was there in the assembly. Vikarna, he said, if nobody is speaking, then I will speak. He said, according to me, Draupadi has not been lost in gambling. And he gives three reasons. He says, when a person is under the influence of four vices: gambling, intoxication, hunting, and womanizing, that time he loses his good sense. He loses the discrimination power. In that situation, whatever he does, it should not be taken seriously. Secondly, he said, Yudhishthir, he was made to gamble. He was unwilling, but still he had to gamble because it was the instruction of the elders. And thirdly, he said, because Yudhishthir, he lost Draupadi even before, before he lost himself, then he staked Draupadi. So therefore, she cannot be considered to be lost. When he spoke those words, entire assembly erupted in applause. Everybody was happy. Everybody was admiring the words of Vikarna. And it seemed that the situation is going to change. At this point of time, Karna got up. Karna is at his worst here. So, what did Karna speak? That we'll discuss next time. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You really left us hanging. We were
Suspense.
all set to hear what did Karna say.
Anyways,
I think most of us will be in that, just wanting to. It's like, one of those movies or serials where you just left it at the climax, but we'll know later. We'll eagerly wait, Prabhuji. So I just wanted to ask, since so many of us are there, if anybody would like to has a question, then they can unmute themselves or write it on the chat, and I can ask. So either of the both the things are, if anybody would like, they can raise their hands if they're not able to unmute themselves. Okay. So I don't think so. There are any questions? Yeah. So next session will be on Wednesday only at 11 o'clock. So Prabhuji, there were so many things you were spoken, but so it's a very confusing uh, story of Draupadi, where one doesn't understand that how could, even if the Pandavas, if Yudhishthir being such a Dharmaraj, but how could he still do this? That means he got so affected by gambling, or even if he's following the instructions of the out of respect for the elders, even still he could have stopped playing
yeah,
at a certain time.
yeah. So, therefore, it is described that even if a great personality like Yudhishthir, if he engages in a activity of gambling, so all these vices, they may overpower, they may, bewilder the mind of even a great personality like Yudhishthir Maharaj. So whenever something is described in scriptures, we have to understand that definitely the person who is in this situation, he is a great devotee, he is a very advanced soul. And then why is he acting in such a way? Many times the situations are arranged not just for that personality. Krishna, he wants to teach others how we should be careful when we are dealing with the vices. And when we see these vices like gambling or intoxication, they can bewilder the mind of anybody. you know so therefore, for sure, Yudhishthir, he was such a great personality, he was Dharmaraj, and he was doing it on the order of the elders, but still he got implicated. That shows that these vices, they have the very they are actually empowered by Kali Yuga. you know so therefore, nobody should trust their mind thinking that, okay, I have led a righteous, virtuous life throughout so far, so I can indulge in little bit of these things, nothing will happen to me. So therefore, we should be very, very careful. So when these things we hear, we should try to learn, we should try to see what is there for me. We should never ever have this thought that, why is this personality doing like this? For sure, even if they are doing something wrong, because of the power of their virtue, power of their devotion, they will get purified very quickly. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Api chet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadhur eva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi sah. So in this verse, Krishna is saying, he's telling Arjuna, oh Arjun, even if somebody is sudurachar, not just durachar. Achar means a good behavior. Durachar means a bad behavior. Sudurachar means extremely bad behavior. Even if somebody does that under circumstances, not in a planned way, some things, if we plan something sinful, then we'll definitely be implicated. But because of our some conditioning, some anarthas, some faults of previous, situations, we may do something wrong. But if we are devoted to Lord, if we stick to the principles of virtue after that, bhajate mam ananya bhag, that's what Krishna says. If somebody is devoted to Lord and devoted to the religious principles, sadhu eva samantavya, one should consider that personality to be a saint, because very soon he'll be back on the path of virtue. Shipram bhavati dharmatma. Shipram means quickly he'll become religious, you know. And that's what we see in the life of Yudhishthir. That was just a small incident which didn't even affect him. So whenever we hear all these things, we should know that this is orchestrated by the Lord for two reasons: to tell us how we should respond to the problems. How should we see the vices? That even a great personality like Yudhishthir, if he can get bewildered and confused and make wrong decisions, then how should we be careful? And secondly, Krishna always uses such extreme examples to tell us how it is so very dangerous, So we have to be always in a learning mode when we read scriptures. Yeah, it is good to hear the story, that is also purifying. But when we learn these things from the scriptures, apply in our lives, that will help us more. Okay. So there are two questions. After Draupadi, also Draupadi being a human being can't be gambled like an object. How was it allowed in that assembly? Yeah. So basically, when these things are described, they should be taken as an extreme things which generally do not happen. We don't see such type of things happening regularly. These are the things which are which come only a few times. Just we know just this one incident. So sometimes these things are, you know arranged by the Lord to show how even in the midst of great calamity, a person like Draupadi, she responded. And of course, it was not that, in the earlier times, there was some provision that, okay, you can gamble, but in this situation, we can see gambling can go to such an extent that somebody is gambling even human beings, even his own wife. So again, it is it is just to show the power of the intoxication of this gambling. So we don't see or hear such type of incidents regularly, and that's why we should never think, oh, how was it allowed in that assembly? And we will see that actually nobody was ready for it. But when Yudhishthir, he was provoked by Kauravas out of his frenzy, he did it. And of course, it was, we'll see in the next class that actually Bhima, he severely criticized Yudhishthir for doing it. So that was the thing. Okay. So what was the third point? Okay. So the Vikarna, he said, first he said, because a person when he is under the influence of the vices like gambling, hunting, intoxication, and womanizing, he loses his discrimination. So therefore, he should not be taken seriously. Secondly, he said Yudhishthir was, gambling unwillingly because it was the order of the elders. And thirdly, he said that actually Yudhishthir, he had already lost himself. He had already staked himself. Then how can he be the one who can stake Draupadi? Because he's already a slave. So that was the thing. Okay. There's Vyasdev also. I'm not sure. I have not heard this. I'll find out. I'll next time I'll come to this. If Vyasdev will be the Yudhishthir will be the cause of the war. So basically, we hear about Draupadi many times because she was gambled and she was actually the one who became the center of this whole war, because Draupadi was the one who was insulted so much. And Pandavas, they took the vow, Bhima took the vow to kill and destroy the Kauravas. But I have not heard about Yudhishthir anytime. Still, I'll find out. Okay. So, any other questions? Anybody has?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. We all are eagerly waiting for the for next Wednesday to hear more about Draupadi. And then, as you have promised, many more Mahabharat characters you'll be discussing over here. And
Yes, yes.
looking forward to that, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Thank you for the
Hare Krishna.
opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.